either Cassian's at the end of a 14 game, road swing, wants to get home. He's getting beat 8-2 at that point. Like, he's pissed off and he's not thinking clearly. Maybe he's very intentional.
That also implies that Cassian ever thought clearly.
Oh my
ever.
God. What's up, and welcome to the Crude Oil Podcast, a weekly uncensored Edmonton Oilers podcast with your hosts, Sean and Greg. What's up, and welcome back to the Crude Oil Podcast. It is the Dustin Penner episode, number 27.
Dustin Penner? Is that the best we got to work with?
I mean...
Have you seen George LaRock?
Yeah, should we take two?
No. You chose Dustin Penner. It's too late now. You can't go back on it.
It's the weird ones.
Dave Semenko, like, come on.
Yeah, I think I just choose the weird ones that, like, stick out. Remember how much the organization, like, threw their entire, like, hopes and dreams on Dustin Penner's shoulders?
Oh, I remember that. Yeah, after they missed out on Thomas Vanek, they're like, let's go Dustin Penner. Let's see how that goes.
That would have been interesting to have him.
The problem is, if we went for Thomas Vanek, we would have lost, I think, 3 or 4 first-round picks.
Right, yeah.
So, at the time, we would have lost out on, like, Taylor Hall, Yakupov, Ono, but Nuge, too. I think that would be those first-round picks.
Yeah, see, I'm happy where all of these decisions led us to getting Connor McDavid. So, you know what? No complaints.
Well, yeah, and there's the missed empty net by Patrick Steffen back in the day, right?
Right.
And somehow that led to us finishing 1 point above Chicago.
Oh, no shit.
And from that, Chicago won the draft lottery and got Patrick Kane. So we're like, oh, but if he didn't miss that empty net, we would have got Patrick Kane. But then we would have never got Draisaitl or McDavid or been where we are right now.
Yeah.
So it's hard to complain about that.
Very fair. So it might be a shorter podcast because we only have 2 games to cover.
Yeah, it feels like we're filling time already.
No kidding. We've got the 8-2 Arizona game and the 5-2 Minnesota Wild game. One last one, and we'll get Minnesota out the window.
I was going to say, I was waiting for you to ask how I am, because I feel like that's how we start the podcast. And I was going to say...
You sound like such an asshole, but yeah. How's it going, Sean?
Yeah, I was going to say, fucking terrible. And that was going to segue into me essentially saying... Edmonton keeps winning, so I have nothing to complain about. And it gives us less content to talk about.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, when things are going good, what do you complain and whine about?
I can't yell into my mic as much. It's not as fun.
Things are good, though, hey?
We're I'm very happy that we're winning.
Okay.
That's great. And I'm not sarcastic. I'm very happy. I want to keep this win streak alive and hope we turned it around.
I've had one of those weeks already. It's Monday. But just where people call you and you're so busy with things going on, and they're like, how's your weekend? How's things going? And I'm like, let's get to the meat and potatoes of this. So, my bad.
It's just more time killers.
Very true. Yeah, we outlined a couple different things to talk about here, just in the last couple of games. But we'll start with the Arizona game. My God, what an onslaught! Like, Edmonton just, from start to finish, this game was over when the puck dropped.
It was peak of what Edmonton could do, and they showed that in spades against Arizona. And if they don't bring that kind of effort every single game, then it kind of drives me insane.
Yeah.
Because it's not... And Arizona, to be fair, not great team, but they have been not terrible either. They just beat Boston after we beat them, the best team in the league.
Yeah, I didn't anticipate them to be not bottom of the league, especially with that long of a road trip, like 14 games away from home. Well, didn't they say it was over a month that they hadn't played? Yeah,
it was 14 games away, and there must have been something going on at the college or university, wherever the hell they're playing, that they couldn't go home to play any games.
It has something to do, I think, with the... Well, even with their games, isn't there a rule that they can't play Saturday home games because of the school?
Yeah, I think the university has dibs on like the weekend games or something like that, just because it's their home arena and they're university kids. They can't really leave to go play during the week.
Yeah, I guess. It sucks, but I mean, the Oilers caught them at a good time, I guess. And this team really needed that, I think. I think it was a good boost to the morale and just kind of the confidence for the rest of the team.
Listen, if we lost to Arizona, we'd be sitting here bitching and moaning, being like, we played down to them, blah, blah, blah. But this is what you need to do, which is beat the teams that are worse than you. You cannot lose valuable points to a team like Arizona or a team like San Jose or a team like Anaheim. You need to beat them.
And I think the other thing that builds into this win, too, is the best players were your best players.
I don't know. Klim Kostin, he was our best player, I would say.
I'm not, pulling him out of our best players. But, yeah, no, I just... we'll get into him in a second. But, Connor McDavid, Draisaitl, and Nugent Hopkins, I think it was a combined, something crazy, 8 points?
Yeah, something along those lines.
Let me do a quick tally. But, yeah, it just complete domination from the team.
Here's the thing about this complete domination is they dominated mostly on the power play. Like McDavid's 2 goals were number 7 and number 8. So just a cherry on top, right? So outside of the beginning of the game where they got a couple power play goals, it was like Derek Ryan's line, the second line with Yamamoto getting an assist, Dylan Holloway and the third line getting a goal, and Holloway getting the point. Klim Kostin, again, scoring goal number, what would that be, 6 in that game.
Yeah.
So I think the top players put more of the cherry on top of the game and made it out of reach, but I would say the depth guys are the ones who truly won us the game.
I'll listen to that. That makes sense. But just to wrap up quickly, 9 points between Nuge, McDavid, and Draisaitl. But yeah, let's dive into that then. Klim Kostin, I thought, easily his best game of the season.
Oh, for sure. He had the Gordie Howe hat trick.
Yeah.
Fought Cassian. Cassian clearly was just being an asshole, I think, and just wanted to fight him for the sake of fighting him.
So, yeah, that was going to be my question. Either Cassian's at the end of a 4-team game, road swing, wants to get home. He's getting beat 8-2 at that point. He's pissed off and he's not thinking clearly. Maybe he's very intentional.
But that also implies that Cassian ever thought clearly, ever.
God. But I think the other thing, just taking a look, there might have been an element, I think, that he was a little bit upset with how easily Kostin went down when he hit him.
Oh, I'm sure that had something to do with it. And Cassian's the kind of guy who finds slights where there isn't slights to get mad about, to be fair. But hey, I'm perfectly fine with it if Klim, for example, or Klim, I guess, is how you're supposed to pronounce
Klim
it.
Kostin.
If he's a willing combatant, then I have no problem with it. And that is the reason why Kostin, I think, will be on that fourth line when we're 100% healthy.
Have you seen a player in the past 5 years that the Oilers fans have all rallied around a bottom 6 player as a fan favorite?
I would say the last known example would be Cassian in 16-17 during the playoffs.
Yeah.
And then outside of that, probably not, because you had the rotating cast of the Jujar Karas in there, who were supposed to be those guys. Maybe Archibald.
Yeah.
When he first came that first season, people really, really liked him.
Brendan Perlini for a hot second.
Yeah, preseason Perlini. Ty Ratty in the preseason.
Yeah.
Pretty much all these guys who just show up for preseason.
I think, of all the guys that you mentioned, though, I think that Klim Kostin's game is more rounded than every single one of those players. Granted, Archibald threw his weight around, but he did not have the size and he did not have the power forward structure that Kostin's brought so far.
Kostin also has the hands.
Yeah.
He's a former first-round pick, so he has the skill there. He wasn't picked there just because of his size. So I think he brings a huge element, and him and Ryan have great chemistry. Mm-hmm. I think they've proven that the two of them are going to be staples on that fourth line. I don't know if Shore's been as effective as the two of them have been, but you can't argue with what they've done in the past 2 games.
Yeah. Before we get into the topics and stuff, we'll look into the Minnesota game. 5-2 win. Minnesota's not, the easiest team to beat in the NHL. They're a solid club.
Minnesota is kind of unique in the sense that they still seem like they want to play that slow trap style that they've been known for 15 years. But then they have guys like Kaprizov there who don't play that style. They play ball to the wall offense.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a weird fit there. I'm surprised Kaprizov ended up signing long term because of that.
I mean, anything to keep you out of Russia at this point. But
I didn't think about that.
It's tough when those are your 2 options. But I don't know. every single one of those games, I still get bogged down by the style of game. Maybe it's just the arena that it's in. Like, this one was easier to digest maybe because it was in Edmonton, but like I know tonight it's like one of the least favorite places to watch a hockey game, at least from a TV perspective. I can't even tell you what it is.
I think it might just be like it's ingrained in our head to hate Minnesota for the way they play. Because it's hard to say that was like a slow trap style game when each team had like 40 shots on net. So, and there was huge chances both ways. Like Skinner, I would say, is the reason why that wasn't a tie game going into overtime or something like that. And similar, Fleury is the reason why that wasn't like a 10-2 game.
Yeah.
Because Fleury made some 10-bell saves too.
Yeah, he really did. He really did. One real cool thing that I saw, and everything that I've heard about the stories about Marc-Andre Fleury is that he's like an absolute complete professional. And I saw the little segment that they had where Gene ran into the staff that were cleaning the ice, and they saw Fleury go up to him, and he was just thanking them because he has the weird thing where he puts his bottle in upside down, and that's such a weird thing to do. But the fact that the staff on the ice knew that this is what he did, and they set him up, it's just a quick thank you for, like, it's just these little things. It's so cool to
Goalies
hear.
are also really weird.
Oh my god, yeah, complete creatures. But yeah, I guess looking into the game, I missed the first half of it, so I know that Darnell Nurse has kind of popped up on your radar here.
Man, I hate shitting on Nurse so much, but like, I just don't understand why when he makes a mistake, it is like the most painfully, visibly obvious, boneheaded mistake you've ever seen in your life. It's like he has moments where he looks like our number one defenseman, and other times where he looks like he was just drafted out of junior and is way in over his head. It just doesn't make any sense. He is quite the anomaly of a player.
Yeah, like when he messes up or things happen, like they come at big costs, and then the one thing that I was kind of surprised is just to see the time on ice for Darnell Nurse continue to be there after a mistake like that, where I think if you look back a couple games ago and Bouchard makes not even, I would say Nurse is more direct on that mistake than
Nurse's
Bouchard
was much more egregious, let's say.
Yeah, I think that's a big moment where you sit down a guy and you say you set a precedent for the team. Like, anybody can fuck up.
I feel like the coaches are like, oh, Nurse is a veteran. Like, he knows. We don't have to send him a message. Versus Bouchard, who's a sophomore, is like, we might have to send the message. But I think it sends a better message if you were to bench a guy like Nurse for, like, let's just say the period, to show accountability for all the defense, regardless of your experience level. Like, we expect a standard, and you need to meet that standard.
Yeah, like at that point, you're looking at, 8 minutes with him on the bench?
Yeah.
So
I think it would have been reasonable to do that and like say something like that to the decors, like, just so you guys know, like, we expect accountability. If you make a mistake this egregious, you will be punished to a degree. And to another note, like Broberg and Bouchard together, for example, they've been really good. I've been very impressed by them, and I would argue that they have been our steadiest pair, especially through these last two games. Because Kulak and Barry, like, they've been okay, but similar to Nurse, when they make mistakes, they're egregious and cost the team.
Yeah. It's kind of nice to see Broberg kind of slip in and just be completely quiet. I know we've talked about it week over week about
this is what we kind of need from him, and what he should have brought at the beginning of the year. And I think maybe he figured that out after he got sent down, that maybe he was trying a bit too hard to be fancy. And maybe his time in the AHL, he got back down to the fundamentals of his game.
Yeah, build that little bit of confidence up, get that ice time in. Maybe like his training camp wasn't as long as he needed it to be, but yeah, it was just it was nice to see him kind of slide in and not be, forcibly moving pucks up ice or, just playing hot potato every single time.
Yeah. It's important to note that these guys are probably playing more sheltered minutes. I don't have the advanced stats in front of me, but I'm sure Nurse and CC are playing against like the Kaprasov line, for example, in this Minnesota game, like the vast majority of the time.
Yeah.
Versus these guys, Broberg and Bouchard are probably playing against the fourth line and the third line occasionally, getting offensive zone starts, not much defensive zone responsibility.
Yeah. So I can't remember if we mentioned this or not, but recording Monday night, Oilers about to play Minnesota last time. Tuesday will be the Preds. Thursday with St. Louis, and then we head into Saturday with another 2 p.m. game, lovely, against the Ducks. But that kind of brings up some of the topics over the week that we wanted to get into. Let's start with some of the roster moves, actually, that occurred. We see Benson going down to Baco, and kind of alternatively, that leaves up James Hamblin. Shocker?
Not necessarily. Benson going down, I'm not surprised. He cleared waivers. Once again, not surprised. He's not probably the quality that people are looking to add to the roster at this point. And I wanted Benson to do well now that he's back from injury, but maybe he needs some time to ramp back up after that. But he didn't look like he was ready to stick with the roster, not like he did in preseason, didn't bring it the same way. Hamblin, on the other hand, has one benefit that Benson does not, and that is that he is a center.
Yeah, I was going to say.
And with McLeod out still, he's playing center. Otherwise, you have Ryan and Devin Shore as your bottom centers, unless you want to play Holloway at center, for example.
Yeah.
So I'm not surprised by that at all.
I think it's good confidence, too, because, like, you're giving a guy and Tyler Benson a chance to get fired up for the season. I would not be shocked to see him called up in 2 to 3 weeks.
Yeah, he could be one of our first call-ups kind of style.
Yeah.
He'd probably be ahead of Malone in the depth charts, unless we need a center, for example, where Malone plays.
But in conversely, like, you're also giving Hamblin that extra little bit of experience. Like, he hasn't been bad.
Hamblin has been, which I'm happy about for a young player, he's been pretty quiet.
Yeah.
Where he hasn't been like a liability on the ice, and they've got their fair share of a few chances because it's Hamblin, Holloway, and Puljujarvi playing together. Mm-hmm. And to be fair, like, there was a lot of talk of Holloway lately, and I think the Minnesota game was a bit more of a quiet game, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. So it'll be interesting to see how that line plays tonight and how many minutes they play, because with how well the Ryan line and the Kostin line, they're the same line.
Yeah.
How well they've been playing, they're essentially that other line with Holloway and stuff is getting bumped down to fourth line duties and minutes. Okay. And the vast majority of the responsibilities going to the pseudo fourth line of Derek Ryan and Klim Kostin and Devin Shore.
Yeah. So that kind of leads into the next question that I had. And I mean, I think I know the answer because we talked about it a little bit last week, but when all of these injuries get figured out and everybody's healthy, does Klim Kostin still have a spot on this top 12?
I would say so.
And so that likely pulls out, you're either losing a Ryan or a Shore.
I think Shore for sure.
Yeah, I think Shore would be the first, eh?
Yeah. Because I think we talked about this before. We'll go through the lines again. It'd be like Kane, McDavid, Hyman, Nuge, Draisaitl, Yamamoto, Holloway, McLeod, Fogle, and that leaves Ryan, Kostin, and Puljujarvi as our fourth line.
Right.
So I think that's pretty reasonable. I know there's a bit of a offside with Kostin and Puljujarvi. I think they're both right wings. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if they're looking for that balance.
I think Kostin's a natural lefty though.
Okay.
Left winger. So
well, then like that would work pretty well, and I think it speaks volumes about Puljujarvi and where he might be valued in this organization at this point.
True. I'm with you. Like, I think Kostin, if he continues to play the way he's playing, you have to find a spot on the roster.
Oh, of course. And if you take him out of the roster, like obviously Kane will be back, but I don't want him fighting and being overly physical. Yeah. I'd rather see a guy like Kostin doing the grunt work that comes with that role.
And I think if you're going to play him somewhere, I think you have to play him somewhere that's complementary to a smaller player, like a Yamamoto, like a Puljujarvi. I say Puljujarvi, but he still plays a soft game. That's why I say that.
What about Derek Ryan?
Well, exactly.
Yeah,
same
I think that's
deal.
why they complement each other so well.
Yeah. So I guess we'll see what happens. I mean, knock on wood that everybody gets back right away. And that, of course, with McLeod coming back, that obviously states that your first move would be Hamblin down and then probably Devin Shore. But I know they like to keep him around for his kind of versatility up and down the lineup. But we'll see.
He'd just be the 13th forward for sure. He would still be on the roster. They're not going to send him down probably. Yeah. Unless there's some cap implications that we're not considering, of course.
Yeah. One of the nice things that we saw in the Minnesota game is that Yamamoto finally gets that monkey off the back with his first of the season.
That was nice to see too. And his, I think it was the Arizona game where he had the nice forced turnover that gave Nuge the
Yeah.
breakaway where he buried.
Yeah.
And that's classic Yamamoto that we're always looking for. So I think he might be starting to gain his confidence back a little bit, which with Yamamoto, he either has no confidence and is on a huge cold streak, or his confidence is sky high and he's going to put up point per game for the next like 20 games.
See, that's why I was joking on Twitter, because this is the practice before the Minnesota game where he kind of got dogpiled by the team with the hug in the corner. Like, that's all he need, just a hug. Like,
well, it's similar to
a little reminder.
Similar to Bouchard when he got the monkey off his back.
Yeah.
Where, like, since he scored those goals, I haven't yelled at my TV that Bouchard keeps hitting people in the shins with his puck.
Yeah.
He's found a way to kind of get his head out of that area of his game and has been able to get shots through a lot more easily. So I think that'll be the same with Yamamoto, where maybe he'll have a little bit more confidence crashing the net with his stick on the ice and being able to get pucks on net in general.
Yeah.
He also had a breakaway where he could have scored as well in that one of those games. I can't remember which one now.
Yeah. I think a lot of these players will need some reminder sometime, just because this team feels different, and I'll associate them with last year's team as well, but I don't remember seeing such a cohesive, like, admiration for each teammate. Like, they talk about how close a room can be and everything, but you can tell that these guys are fighting for each other. And even when you look at the guys that are struggling, like, they're all Yamamoto, Fogle, Bouchard, the best of buddies. And you got to know the entire team has their back too. It's just when you see them struggling, when one guy pulls himself out, it seems like they're pulling someone else along with them. And it's moving in a very much like a train, if you want to use that as the...
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I think the team as a whole, like, obviously winning helps. So, like, comparing it to the Decade of Darkness is a little, like, meh. But this team's been a lot more consistent with its overall cast over the past, like, let's say 5 years. Where versus, like, during the Decade of Darkness, where the team every year there'd probably be like 12 different players on the team because they were trying anything. The bottom six was never the same players. Mm-hmm. But this is like the first year in a while where I feel like we've had the same kind of 6 players plus or minus a guy here or there.
Yeah.
Who are in that bottom 6. So everybody knows each other. They're all familiar with each other, and they've had that opportunity to build that camaraderie, which obviously has helped the locker room.
Yeah, for sure. But if we're going to be honest about people and the struggles that they're going through, I think we got to talk about Puljujarvi, because this came out like the day of our last podcast. But it's been a week. It's been time to kind of digest some thoughts. But Puljujarvi's comments to the Finnish reporter, where he's kind of down and out, it's sad to see, man.
It was really depressing to read, to
be
perfectly honest. And, like, Puljujarvi's always struggled with confidence, but it clearly showed in that. Like, and it's just painful to read stuff like that a guy his age feels like his career's already over in the NHL.
Yeah.
When, like, if he was in the league 10 years ago, when youth wasn't as in the spotlight, his career might just be getting started, and people wouldn't have these sky-high expectations of him.
Yeah, and it feels like Oilers fans are such a divisive group when it comes to Puljujarvi. Like, you're either his biggest fan or you're critical of him. And I think when you look at his struggles, yes, there's an element to him struggling. Yes, there's an element to his point production. But you got to know that all of those things that he's going through right now, he knows. Clearly, he knows that. Then you have the impact of the coach. The coach is obviously going to have his back. The team's going to have his back. They know he's struggling, though. So he's heard it all before. But when we have all this external, like, piling, being like, oh, he's a man, he should figure it out. Like, this isn't 1980 anymore. There also wasn't social media in 1980 either. So, like, I don't know if he's ever online and goes through all this stuff, but
God, I hope not.
Yeah, God, like, if I were to give any advice there, is shut off your phone, like, get away from it, and connect yourself to the group as much as you can. Because the other thing, like, too, is you have the media types around Edmonton that are jumping on. It's like they're starting this fire, and then 2 weeks later when he comes out and says these comments, be like, oh, what happened? Oh, he said it wasn't us. That's such horseshit. You can't fucking, like, fuel a fire and then just watch something burn down and then be like, oh, look what he did to himself.
Yeah. They provided all of the gasoline necessary.
Exactly.
It just got sparked by something else.
Yeah.
But to be fair, when it comes to Puljujarvi, I would say his biggest like flaw in his game, outside of confidence, obviously, would be like his stick handling, for example.
Mm-hmm.
And that has not improved in the slightest, I feel, in the past, like, whatever. It's been since he's been drafted, like, 6 years. It's been, like, he's playing more physical. That's good. And, like, getting more confident in that part of his game, which lends to more of a bottom six role, which is fine.
Yeah.
But the one biggest aspect of his game that people have complained about hasn't improved at all. So is that lost in communication somewhere where he doesn't think it's a problem? Is it just something he doesn't have in his toolkit?
Mm-hmm.
Is he's just going to be like stone hands for the rest of his life? Or is that something he can improve?
Yeah. And I think the biggest thing that pissed me off is that he's clearly struggling and he's going to use his, native language to explain to a reporter. No shit, he's not talking to Edmonton reporters about this stuff.
I mean, could you imagine calling up those guys and being like, oh yeah, like, I think my career's over.
Yeah. Like they'll eat you alive.
Yeah.
But the other thing too, that like in that entire report, the one thing that I was kind of happy to see is that, yeah, he had an excerpt where he felt like he was over, but he also took a positive out of the role that he's playing now, and he's trying to do things that are different. Like his hitting is completely picked up. He's got that kind of, and that's kind of the nature of an NHLer's career. Like you adapt or die with anything in life, and if Puljujarvi can't be the top goal getter that the top six producer that they expected him to be, he's got to find a way he can contribute.
This is an interesting question, I think, for you. With him signing for a $3 million contract,
mm-hmm.
do you think that was more of a detriment to his game than if he would have signed for, say, 1.5?
Yeah, I think it set him up for a lot of pressure.
Unrealistic expectations?
Yeah, exactly. It sets a bar at, whatever. And I've mentioned this before with the Nurse contract, which I think is the biggest bullshit argument that you can have. Like, because a guy's making X amount of dollars, that they have to live up to that standard. It's fucking market demand. Like
and the way the NHL is set up, you get paid for what you have done.
Yeah.
Not for what you were going to do. Look at like Taves and Kane, for example, where they won like 3 cups with Chicago and all that, and then they signed their huge contracts. Those contracts were never active when they won any of the cups.
Not to mention that these players work under a union. Like, do you know if you're setting a market price for X player and that player takes a bath like McKinnon did to stay in Colorado, do you know how many people you're pissing off? Like, all of your peers start turning their back because all you're doing is lowering the overall market price for that type of player. Do I blame Puljujarvi for getting as much money as him? No. Did it help him maybe? I don't think so.
Well, help him financially, but
yeah.
Could he have extended his career potentially longer? Like, I know I'm talking like his career is over.
Right.
But, like, would he extend his career longer if he didn't feel so downtrodden and didn't feel like he needed to go back to Europe, for example? Mm-hmm. If he was just $1.5 million, his points would be okay for that amount. That what he brings to the game would be more than okay for that amount of money. And nobody would be forcing him onto the top line and the second line because clearly he plays better with less pressure not playing with the top guys.
Yeah.
He seems to really come out of his shell when he's playing with like McLeod and Holloway and whoever the fuck else is on that line, Hamlin right now.
Yeah. That would be the best outcome, I think, out of this, because I'm okay if Puljujarvi's a bottom 6 player. If he plays the way he's been playing on that third line, like, I've got no issue with it.
Well, he needs to, like, obviously, I think he needs to lower his expectations. Obviously, he is very wanting to contribute in a top 6 role. But he needs to lower his expectations, and ultimately, all of us, and especially the media, need to lower their expectations and stop looking at the $3 million and look at the player himself and what we've had, like, 5 years of him playing here to figure out exactly what type of player he is.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yes, he could improve in areas, and I'm sure he will. But at this point in his career, I don't see him as more than a third liner.
Yep. And it's completely fair. So
He needs to start killing penalties. That's what we need.
that'd be interesting.
He'd bring a lot more to the bottom six if he also killed penalties.
Yeah.
So it's almost more of a Cassian situation where he doesn't kill penalties. So it's like he's going to get lost in the shuffle in special teams.
Yeah. And just to kind of put a bow on this, I think the one thing that I'm really appreciative of is Ken Holland's tendency to sit with things until he's comfortable to make decisions. Like, he's not giving up on Puljujarvi just to get an asset and give him a new start. Obviously, Puljujarvi is going to give him an ultimatum. He's done it to the team before where, like, I'm not going to play.
Well, I believe there was some sort of verbal agreement at least, and I think Puljujarvi's agent mentioned it recently, where essentially they were going to try it out at the beginning of the year, but if it didn't work out, they would work together for a trade to make something work, because I would not be surprised if this is Puljujarvi's last season here.
Yeah.
Whether or not he finds his game and manages to score 30 goals this year, I think this is his last year here regardless.
I'd agree with you.
If for anything, it's just his mental health at this point.
Yeah.
Go to Columbus like Goudreau did and just chill and coast for the rest of your career.
Yeah. I guess we'll see what happens. I don't see him finishing out the season in Edmonton. But
maybe finishing out the season, but yeah, I don't see him going any further than after this season.
I hope he stays, because if the Oilers make a cup run and we get to see that tongue flapping about on Jasper Ave with a Stanley Cup hanging above
like
his head.
Golden retriever hanging out the car window.
Yeah, exactly. All right, we'll shift some gears. My freaking words.
It's Monday.
It is Monday. Some of the other stuff. Did you see the fucking swing from Chabot on the bench on Saturday?
That was hilarious.
Oh my god.
And I feel terrible for Hamonic. For anybody who doesn't know, Chabot angry on the bench, sitting next to Hamonic. They're along the boards on the right side. And Chabot just randomly loses it because obviously he's frustrated and just slams his stick against the glass to the right. But his stick breaks. And his follow-through just slashes Hamonic right across the face.
I didn't see, but did he go down? Like, was he out any shifts?
I don't know if he left for any shifts. I know he was sitting there looking pretty beat up for a second. Being like, it's kind of like one of those moments you're like, are you fucking kidding me? You could tell he's just thinking that.
Yeah. Good God, that was... Oh my goodness. Just the rest of the team. Like, in that moment, everybody on the team is like, you idiot. Like,
I'm sure he's well aware. I think he had some comments today where he's like, yeah, that was probably the stupidest thing I've ever done.
Then we had the incident with Chara and Bieksa. Chara going on that podcast talking about how allegedly him and some Bruins players either heard or saw. His story kept changing. It was
they had to have heard.
Yeah, we saw, then the media saw, and then we heard, and it kept going like worse and worse and worse. But apparently the Vancouver Canucks were asking about how many people they could invite to the game to get down on the ice. This was back in the 2010. Is it 2010 or 2011?
2011.
2011. For the finals, and then they're pretending to pass around the Stanley Cup and all this other stuff. And this happened a couple days before Bieksa announced that he's going to address it on Saturday night. And I was just ready for him to like tear a rip off of Chara. But to Kevin's like defense, he actually came off really professional with his response.
I mean, he is on payroll for Hockey Night in Canada, so he probably had to kind of sit back and control his response a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can only see that they heard that, or else from BX's comments, you would have definitely gotten a response from Chara by now being like, no, we saw it, or something like that. Yeah. Maybe it was like some ice crew or something who walked by Chara and they're like, hey, Chara, guess what? We saw them practicing. What do you think about that? And Chara's just like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Clearly it worked, but...
I love his, in his response, how he's talking about when you make these comments, you're not only like taking a shot at two Hall of Fame like hockey players in the Sedins, you're also taking a shot at the leadership crew in which he was a part of, saying that they would allow this kind of thing to happen on the ice and think that it was appropriate. Like, there's no shot that would have happened. None whatsoever.
Maybe like a single guy walked out and just thought about it for a second, and he's like skated out there, was just like, oh yeah, this is what it'll be like. But the whole team like pretending to pass around the cup and be like, oh, who's next? Who's next? Oh, Luongo, get over here. There's no fucking way they did that.
No shot. That was interesting. And the media output just continued. We get the Tim and Friends response talking about the Leafs and how they're on a bit of a heater right now.
Just a smidge.
Yeah, just a little bit. But they're talking about how put up a tweet asking if the top 4 players for the Leafs, if they can find a better top 4 in the NHL right now. And the Edmonton Oilers, with a rare like clapback win, like stating Nuge, Hyman, McDavid, and Draisaitl have 31 more points than those 4 combined. Granted, it's the entire year, but I mean, isn't that what you're paying for, not streaks?
Even if it was in the past 14 games, I think it would at least be pretty even.
Yeah.
Because McDavid's on his goal streak, Draisaitl's Draisaitl. I think Hyman's been a little cold lately, but Nuge has been hot as hell lately too. He's got more points than Matthews this season.
Yeah.
Like, we keep talking about all this shit, and we barely pumped Nuge's tires for having the best season of his career so far.
That's true.
I think he scored more goals than he did all of last year already.
He's one of those guys that just puts up quiet points.
Well, they're all power play points, right? And I was having an argument with my cousin the other day about essentially the Oilers' power play is nothing without Nuge, is what I was trying to argue. And he's like, no, it's McDavid and Draisaitl. They'll be fine. But before Nuge was up on the first unit, like 5 years ago or so, he was playing on the second unit. And Edmonton's power play was the worst power play in the league.
Yeah.
And then Nuge finally got put back up on that unit. Next season, they're top 5. Next season, number 1. Next season, number 1. Like, Nuge is one of the best half-wall players in the game. It's a shame he's not right-handed, so he could have a better shot on that side. But because he's left-handed, he can distribute like crazy on that side. And it's part of the reason why Draisaitl gets as many goals as he does on that power play.
Yeah.
But anyways, I got off track, sorry. But yeah, and fuck the Leafs. They go on a win streak and everyone's pumping their tires and cares about them so much. But their $11 million forward has less points than our $5 million forward.
No, good rant. I appreciate that. I just wanted to pull up a tweet from Zach Lang. He's talking about the points, the salary cost per point, and between McDavid, Draisaitl, Nugent Hopkins, and Hyman, they have a combined cap hit of $31.63 million, 62 goals, 161 points, $196,000 per point. Marner, Matthews, Nylander have a combined $40.5 million, 57 goals, 130 points, so 31 less. $311,500 per point. So, I don't know. You tell me how the cap management's going for the Leafs.
Well, I think we all know how that's going, but
finally, we'll wrap up with the news of the Heritage Classic. Next year it's back and it's against the Flames, which is nice.
I've already had many people reach out to me like, we're going, right? Oh, we're going. Oh, I'm super excited though. First one since the one against Montreal.
Here. Yeah, because they had the Winnipeg one. Yeah. And granted, it's going to be in October, so hopefully a little bit warmer than it was before.
This time around, or October this year, it was pretty warm, I think.
Yeah.
I think we had a couple 20-degree days. So it'll be interesting to see if it ends up being that hot, if they're even able to have it.
Yeah, I know my parents went to the first game, and my dad still has that fun story where he went to go buy 2 beers, minus 22, without the wind chill, and they sat down, you'd finish like half your beer and the other one's frozen. Like,
yeah, it sounds about right.
A lot of kudos to those kinds of games, to those players in those games anyways.
I think it's going to be plus 20 or it's going to be minus 20, and there's no in between.
Yeah. Did you see it was a rumored leak, I think it was some guy's just design of the jerseys?
I did not.
Okay. It may be the most atrocious Oilers jersey I've ever seen.
Okay, I thought you were going to say something else. I thought you were like, oh yeah,
God.
It's great.
It's an oil drop, and then it's got what looks like a banner that goes around the oil drop that just says Edmonton Oilers, and it's in like the color of the late 90s jerseys, with the shoulder patch and stuff, and the red added into it. It's pretty horrific. So I hope that they're still designing jerseys and that has no insight whatsoever.
Well, I hope that guy doesn't work for them. He's the jersey designer. That'd be pretty unfortunate.
Honestly, I'm getting to the point where I'm getting old, is what I'm trying to say. But I'd be down to see like the old like copper and blue come back.
For a game like that, I would definitely be all over that. And see Calgary bring back the horse or something like that for that jersey, that'd be a good time.
Yeah.
But it'll be an exciting game. There is one more piece of news that I just wanted to talk about that we mentioned last podcast, that Reece Schaefer made the selection team for Team Canada. And it was announced today that he made the team.
That's
playing
exciting.
On the fourth line with former Oil King Dylan Guenther.
There we go.
So that'll be exciting.
Yeah, some hometown talent. Well, I guess,
It gives us more reason to watch the World Juniors. To obviously, do I need more of a reason to cheer for Canada? Probably not, but it's just icing on top. And Connor Bedard, number 1 center. Shane Wright, number 2 center. It'll be a really fun tournament to watch for Edmonton.
Yes. I think I'm going to be glued to the juniors this year, especially like back around Christmas, things kind of getting back to normal.
Yeah,
it'd be nice to wake up.
August World Juniors.
Where is it this year?
I don't know. I didn't even check, but I don't know if I can Google fast enough to tell you the truth.
That's okay. There's just something about Boxing Day that's so much better when there's juniors hockey on.
It's my favorite time of year where I just sit on the couch with my dad and we just watch the World Juniors.
Yeah, you can wake up at 5 and catch the Spangler to start things too.
It's great. It's in New Brunswick and Nova Scotia. So it's in Halifax and Moncton.
Okay, that's not bad. Two very, Halifax, you go back, that was the Fleury, 2002?
I think you're right,
2003? The World Juniors, and every player that has been in that tournament just keeps talking about how great the atmosphere was. So hopefully it'll be good times ahead.
If you're out in the Maritimes like that, you are starving for NHL and high level hockey. Obviously, you got guys like the Mooseheads and stuff,
right?
But the high level hockey, I'm surprised there's not an NHL team out there. To be honest with you,
man, yeah, nobody likes to party like they do over there.
Exactly. So. It'd be like Winnipeg, where they have a smaller fan base, but they're devoted as fuck.
Yeah. There's some definite teams. Like, you throw one in Halifax, throw one in Saskatchewan.
Wood Buffalo.
Too funny. All right. A slew of games coming up, but we'll be back with lots to talk about next week. Still found a way to put in 42 minutes, so
perfect.
We'll see you next week.